Hello, ladies, and welcome to the Beauty Shaman. So today we have the wonderful Jules Pelayev here today. She is a holistic, a board-certified holistic health coach, two-time author, three-time boy mom, and certified yoga teacher. And we are going to talk about intuitive, intermittent fasting. Thank you so much, Jules, for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. So happy to talk about this topic.
I love this. I love all the topics that we're talking about, but this one in particular, for me, I feel like there's a lot of information out there that is a bit misleading, or maybe we don't totally understand what this is and how to use this in a way that doesn't feel like starvation, right? So maybe you could explain what intermittent fasting is, and how, like, just kind of go into that. Let's just start it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So intermittent fasting is really having a moment, right, in the last couple of years, which is really exciting. But the truth of the matter is fasting has been around since the beginning of time. Yeah. And you think about, there's all this, mimicking of our ancestors' diet with the paleo diet. And, the truth of the matter is our ancestors fasted because they went for long, long periods of time without food. And Hippocrates, the great father of modern medicine, said that, fasting is the way to starve off disease. And before we had our advances in medicine, we had fasting, right? So I'm a huge supporter of all different types of fasting. And I think it's good to start with a definition, right? Because fasting, like you said, there's a lot of information out there, and sometimes we can get, hung up in all the different nuances of it. But the truth of the matter is there's all different types of fasting. You probably did the master cleanse at one point, like I did, the lemon water, cayenne pepper cleanse. There's juice cleanses. There's protein fast. But when we're talking about fasting, what I'm talking about here is just abstaining from eating. That's it, abstaining from food. And we've gotten to a point in our culture and our society, probably in the last, how many years? I mean, at least all my lifetime, and even before that. So I don't even know. But food is on every corner, right? It's all around us, and it's super convenient. And it's gotten us, into a chronic health crisis, frankly. So we need these tools.
I absolutely, go ahead. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think we have a chronic health crisis, and yet modern medicine has never been so big. Right. So I think it's that's why many people out there are going back to basics. Like, wait a minute, what does it really look like to eat healthy? What is that? And let's kind of push all this modern medicine not aside, because some of it is very good, right? But I think the intermittent fasting in particular, when I first saw it, I just could hear my mother in the background, like, oh no, you need to eat, this whole, we're sort of brought up with, you have to eat. But I think what's great about this is it's not like you're fasting, for weeks and weeks. You're not going to be starving yourself, right? We're talking about something that's very controlled. So how would a person do this?
Well, and I think even before talking about that, you mentioned approaching this from a perspective of the opposite of deprivation. And that is really, I think it's a really key distinction to make sure that you have your mind in the right place when you take on fasting, because because it's really important. And I know we're going to do a whole video on mindset. So I'm just going to give a plug right now that you make sure that you get your mindset straight before talking, even considering fasting, because this isn't abstaining because of a fervent desire to, get in a bikini or anything like that. This is about health. This is about nourishment. This is about abstaining as spiritual practice. And when you talk about the origins of fasting, they have their origins in spiritual practice, right? That all sorts of different religions practice fasting as a way of connecting with the divine. And when we empty our system, we are more able to actually, through that process, we remove a lot, not only old accumulated waste matter, but we remove, just our attachments to food, our attachments to wine, our attachments to coffee, to all these comforts that we think we're going to not be able to get through the day without. And that, facing that is, that's huge, right? So you asked about intermittent fasting and how you can get into this. And I also think it's important to talk about the benefits. Why would somebody do something like this? Right. Obviously, we have a chronic we have an epidemic of obesity in our country. So weight loss is key. It's really super important for a lot of people's health when it comes to fasting. This is a great on-ramp for a lot of people who are dealing with obesity. But so weight loss, inflammation. I know your audience probably talks a lot about inflammation. Inflammation is really super important. This is going to help regulate blood sugar, right? Which is counterintuitive. Oftentimes we think that if we have blood sugar issues that we have to eat, and that's, again, it's counterintuitive, but the research now is really backing up these claims, which I think is really cool. The other thing that I really love about intermittent fasting is the fact that it helps your body to age more gracefully. And it does that through a process called autophagy. So when you fast, your body actually goes through this. Autophagy means like self-eating, which is kind of gross, but it's this idea that you're going to help clean up old cells. And it's really, really important that we learn this as a skill so that we can detox and clean up the old stuff so that, it just doesn't sit in our bodies, which we know that if it sits in our bodies can lead to cells going rogue, and it can lead to all sorts of other chronic illnesses. So that's some of the benefits. How you get into this is another thing, right? So there's a very common type of intermittent fasting called 16-8. Have you heard of this, Suzanne? 16?
I don't know. Go ahead, explain it.
So 16-8 is basically where you fast for 16 hours and then you have an eating window of 8 hours a day. And that doesn't sound, probably for a lot of people, that challenging. However, the way to make it work is the fact that you basically are fasting from dinner to breakfast. And I'll say breakfast because breakfast will happen as your first meal later in the day, but you're mostly fasting while you're sleeping, right? So the idea to get 16 hours in a fasting window is to have your last food or drink by about 7 p.m. And then you go for 16 hours until you have any food, really. Let's talk about food, because there's certain beverages that I think you can have in your fasting window to help make it a little bit easier, especially as you're learning to do this. So you're really fasting over, those 12 hours, right? While you're not sleeping, but 7 to 7 would be 12. And then you've got a few more hours on the backside in the morning where we can give you some tips, and I can give you some tips and tricks for how to extend that fast. But that's the idea, is that you would fast for 16 hours and then eat in an 8-hour window. Let's say that's from 11 to 7, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that's a good way to get started. And actually, for some people, 16 is a little bit of a stretch. So start with 14. And what this actually does is it helps people be more mindful about eating after they've had dinner. So that late night snacking, which we know is like a kind of a recipe for disaster, it messes up your sleep. And typically, when you're eating after dinner, you're not necessarily going for the best choices. Usually it's like, it's like some ice cream or some popcorn or something that is like, oh, I just need something to like, because I'm a little bored, right? So that, right, in and of itself is really helpful for people.
And it makes it like, when you say that, it sounds like, oh, I could do that. I could wake up, have some water or something to sort of get the system going, like lemon water. We're both sucking down lemon water. And then hold off until like, maybe 11 o'clock or something to have breakfast. So I think if you put it in those kind of terms, it's not quite as overwhelming.
It's not. And then, something that also has become very popular is, not actually taking out that morning beverage that so many people like. Coffee, right? So many people like coffee. You like tea. Tea's great. I'm a huge fan of tea. You can continue to have those things during your fast, so long as you, coffee black is always the best when you're fasting. That's not going to disrupt your fast. right? You can put a little MCT oil in there, and that stands for medium chain triglyceride. And that's actually going to help your body to burn fat for fuel. So it helps you to create more ketones, which is how your body burns more fat for fuel. And then that'll help you to feel more satiated so you can reach that 11 o'clock. Lemon water first thing, even before coffee, is even better. It's good for flushing the liver. It's a good alkalizer. It's a good dose of vitamin C. It's obviously extremely hydrating. It's great for your skin. I think that those of you who are watching this channel, don't you think that lemon water is like the best thing for your skin ever?
I mean, I always joke that I drink about a gallon a day of water, which is an obscene amount, but I just love it. Like I buy really awesome water and I put a bunch of lemon in it and I just suck on it all day long. And that's like one of the main things you can do for your skin. I've talked about this on the channel. So I think this is a great idea to get up and start drinking your water right away.
Yeah. Start with some water. Have some lemon water. Most of my clients, they're like, gosh, after I've had all this water and then all the lemon water and then the, coffee or the tea or the, whatever it is that you like to drink, no dairy in your coffee and no sugar and no honey and none of that stuff, right? You can use a little monk fruit or a little stevia, and that's not going to interrupt your fast. But by the time it gets to, having the first meal, which I will tell, if you want to learn how to fast, just skip breakfast. If all this sounds complicated, just skip breakfast. That's it. Have your first meal when you're hungry, closer to 11 or 12. But I was saying, a lot of times my clients are like, I'm just not hungry. I've just had so much liquid, by the time I have my smoothie, it's like, yeah, I'm good for another couple hours.
Yes. I think sometimes we mistake hunger when actually we're thirsty and dehydrated. And I think there's some amazing stat that 60% of people are actually chronically dehydrated. So if you can get over that chronic dehydration, it's just all of like a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. We were talking earlier about cravings and, that sort of thing begins to kind of go out the window because your body has what it's actually looking for.
Yeah. And you had mentioned in the intro about intuitive fasting. And this is just one of those ways to start to, when you're not constantly filling your body and your system with food that it has to like digest and process and eliminate and all this stuff, like you can get more in tune with your body, and the body is talking to you all the time. So hunger, I love that you brought that up, Suzanne, because hunger often masquerades as thirst, like you said. Sometimes hunger masquerades as boredom, like I mentioned before. So it's really about, that is just like one way for you to get in tune with what is my body really wanting right now, and really start to feel into, am I hungry or am I thirsty? Right. And like, you can like just really start to tap in, and, intermittent fasting and intuitive fasting is another way to just get deeply in tune with what your body is really asking of you.
I love this. And I love, I'm really in love with aging. So many people are sort of like, oh, aging. So I am in love with it because I feel so much more confident, so much more in tune with my body, and so much more, I guess, open, like, wow, the whole world's out there. I don't know, than I ever felt in my life. And I think what you're talking about with intermittent fasting is another great way for all of us to plug in even more to what's really going on with our body and really take care of ourselves and rely more on our own intuition, which I think is so key, that we rely less on what someone's telling us and more on, wait a minute, what's really going on here with me? How do I feel? So I love what you've shared, and we're going to wrap up now, but I totally appreciate this, Jules. If the ladies watching this want to know more, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, please. So my website is justjulesnutrition.com, and I'm active on Instagram at Julie Pelayev. So
right. And I'll put
hear from you guys. Yeah.
Yes. And I'll put all the links down below. So please check that out. And please watch our other videos as well, where we've talked about other health concerns for us ladies that are a little older. All right. Thank you so much, Jules, for being on The Beauty Shaman and for sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge. And thank you so much, ladies, for watching The Beauty Shaman.